I just started to clearly see how when crazy hard things happen, there's just a road. There's an immediate fork. Life is happening to you. It's terrible. It's going to scar you, bruise you, and you'll be like this forever. Or there's an opportunity to like accept what life throws at you, to heal, to do what you need to do, and to find a way to like turn it into a positive as much as possible.
That's Loren Brill Castle, the founder and CEO of the #1 natural cookie dough brand in the US, Sweet Loren's. And this is Make Yourself at Home, the podcast that takes you into the homes of people you admire to show you a side you don't usually get to see. I'm Kristen Twyford, and every week we'll talk to someone at the top of their career to explore holistic success and how work and home are inextricably intertwined. Along the way, we hope to inspire you to live well, whatever that means to you. Make Yourself at Home is presented by Nines, the household management app designed to help you manage your home and everything that comes with it, so you can live with ease. Today, we're in Loren Brill Castle's home in LA, talking about choosing which road to take when bad things happen, and how to find work-life balance when your company's mission is so incredibly personal to you. Loren is a trailblazing entrepreneur, and she's also a new mom who's striving to live in the moment, a native New Yorker adjusting to the West Coast, and someone who's grateful for every day. Make Yourself at Home with Loren Brill Castle. All right, Loren, thank you so much for having us into your home. We're so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
Me too. Tell me a little bit about your home and set the stage for us for anybody who's just listening. What do you love about your home and where you're sitting?
What I love the most, I wish you guys could see this whole chair, but it's like this massive, oversized, super cozy chair. It's my favorite chair. I'm in my bedroom, actually. Kind of the two places that I work are my office. But if I'm doing something like this, like sometimes I don't want to be at a desk. I want to be more comfortable and casual. So I actually am from New York City, but moved to LA 2.5 years ago now, right before COVID hit. And we lived in Venice for 2 years. And then we just moved to Mar Vista, and which is on the west side. And we just absolutely love it. So our house is like a little oasis. It's great for kids. We have space to run around, and there's enough room for my husband and I to have our own offices. And it's just like, I love the LA weather. It's just conducive to feeling healthy and good.
And after a lifetime in New York, that has to be a huge change.
I'm such a New Yorker that it's every day, like I don't take any of this for granted, because every day I look out the window and I'm like, the sun, or the fact that I can just throw on flip-flops and go for a walk, or just all of this like beautiful nature. There's so many gorgeous trees around us and different types of flowers, and to be able to go to the beach easily, to be able to go on a hike easily. I feel such a difference living here versus New York, that even though I love New York City and I'm glad I was raised there, and I'll always love it, this is definitely my home now.
Yeah, I want to kick it off by asking you, what does home mean to you?
I think home it's not necessarily the most obvious place. I think it's how you feel. It's where you feel like you belong, and where you feel kind of your best and safest and happiest, and kind of that level of comfort that you can just go like, I'm home, like my guard is down. I feel safe and secure and kind of the best here. So I think that's my definition of home. I think I have friends that I feel like are family, and I kind of feel like I'm at home when I'm even at their place. And, I want my closest friends and family to come here and feel like they're at home. But, when I come home, I love it. I think we've made our home. I used to live in a New York City apartment, a tiny, tiny studio apartment, for so long. And my husband was in San Francisco, and he also was in an apartment. And I think that when we came to LA, we were like, we want a house, and we want space, and we want a lot of windows, and we want to be able to see nature. And so I think that we really appreciate it because we didn't come from this.
So I want to get into talking about sort of how you found yourself here. But before we do that, I want to just share that, you're the CEO of Sweet Loren's and people know you as the founder of Sweet Loren's. You're the number one natural cookie dough brand in the US. I feel like Sweet Loren's is everywhere right now. I see you guys everywhere. You're in 15,000 supermarkets, which is amazing. And at the same time, you've had a lot of change and excitement in your personal life over the last couple of years. You got married and you had a baby. Congratulations all around. And this move, apparently,
Thank you.
too. That's awesome. I want to take a step way back and ask you, when you were a kid, what did you imagine for your life? Do you think you would have ever imagined yourself here where you are now?
It's so funny. No, I mean, well, in some ways, I don't think I would have picked this industry necessarily, but my mom, both my parents were entrepreneurs, and my mom was an entrepreneur. And I just remember so looking up to her. And I remember even probably on my 10th birthday, she was like, "What do you want me to get you?" And I wanted, something that could hold and organize my stationery and my pens on my desk. Like, I don't think many 10-year-olds are thinking that. So I think I clearly loved kind of the idea of business and getting things done and getting things organized from a young age. And I think I looked up to her a lot. And then I think somehow got super interested in food and health and wellness at the same time. That kind of came out throughout high school, end of high school, and then college. And so I guess what Sweet Loren's is combining those three really major interests of mine, food, health and wellness, and business. And so, but I mean, you can't predict the future. I had no idea. I think after I graduated college, I assumed I would get my MBA and somewhere and buy a little bit more time and figure out what I wanted to do. And then life happens and, things happen that I did not predict. And that's where the idea from Sweet Loren's really came from.
Yeah, so take me back to that moment. You're getting ready to graduate from college.
So I graduate from college. I'm 22 years old. I graduate from USC in LA. So I've always been attracted to LA, even from New York. I went to college out here. Graduate in I decided to spend the summer, I graduated in May. I decided to spend the summer in New York, really to be with my mom and my sister and pack up my stuff and really move to LA full time and figure out what I want to do, with my life. And a couple months into the summer, I woke up one morning and the lymph nodes in my neck were incredibly swollen. Like, it was so bizarre. And my mom brought me to her doctor, and she unfortunately had a type of cancer. And so her doctor was an oncologist. And he looked at me and said, "You're 22 years old. You either have nothing at all or Hodgkin's lymphoma." And I didn't even Google Hodgkin's because I was like, there was just no way at 22 years old that I could have something that serious. My brain couldn't even process that chance. So it took, I was like, "Doctor, I'm moving back to LA in a couple of weeks, like that's my plan." And he was like, "You're not, you're canceling that ticket and you got to stay in New York until we figure this out." So it actually took a month of testing because I had no weird other symptoms. Nothing showed up in my blood work. There just was nothing really obvious except these lymph nodes. And so they did a biopsy and I was diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I had to start chemo immediately. And it was, just the biggest shock and not something that anyone ever expects, but especially kind of fresh out of college when you're excited to take on the world and pretty much feel invincible. And then you realize you're very human.
I cannot imagine how hard that moment was, especially feeling that you're invincible and you're excited to take on whatever's next and to figure out what's next. And then what's next is being dictated to you. How did you feel in that moment when you got that news?
I think at the first couple months, I felt very helpless and that life was just unpredictable and being thrown at me. And quite frankly, like it wasn't a happy life. Like I wasn't excited about anything anymore. And so I sat with that for a couple months, and then something just like hit me one day where I was so tired of not loving life and feeling good. And that really wasn't me. Like the real Loren has always been outgoing and happy and positive person and kind of a go-getter. And so I think when I really felt like I hit kind of rock bottom of feeling hopeless, I realized how terrible that feels. And I just made up my mind. I was like, I'm going to find a way to get through this. I'm going to do everything in my power. I'm going to put on like tunnel vision. I don't care what's happening anywhere else. Like my goal is just to get through this, to make sure Loren is happy and healthy and, gets through this and it feels better than ever on the other side. And thankfully I wasn't working. I didn't have, a job. So my real job just became 100% take care of myself. And so when I went to my doctor at the next appointment, I was like, what else can I do? He was a top doctor in New York City. I know I was going to get the best medical treatment, but I've always been a holistic person. And, I wanted to hear what I should eat, how I should sleep, how I should exercise, like meditation, like mental health, like what else could I do? And he didn't really have great answers. And that's when I just got really motivated to become my own doctor and figure out what was right for me. And so to me, food was the first thing. Like I felt such a difference when I ate fresh, clean food versus something packaged or kind of, processed. And so I was like, I have to give my body the energy to fight this. So I'm going to study nutrition and I'm going to figure out how to eat the healthiest, best foods. Then I'm going to take cooking classes. And I'm going to learn how to cook, really well so all food tastes delicious, but I'm going to make sure the ingredients are wholesome and clean and simple. And that really became my focus. And so I fell in love with cooking and I fell in love with beet greens. Like people just eat beets. They don't even realize you can eat the greens on the end and like how you can just saute it and make it taste so good. And I just was like, I'm not this crazy hippie. Like I'm a New Yorker who loves super high quality, high end food at the same time. But I just fell in love with kind of, I'm saying hippie food, just like back to basics, really clean, very simple, just trying to be really flavorful and fresh. And I fell in love with the way I felt, fell in love with kind of the different types of ingredients out there. And then after kind of making a bunch of meals, I was like, what do I do about dessert? I feel like it's really easy to make delicious salads and like grains and proteins, but everyone has a sweet tooth. Everyone wants something exciting at the end of a meal. I personally have a huge sweet tooth. And, so I started looking up recipes and trying to buy stuff in stores. And there was nothing exciting. Like 99% of recipes out there for baking is white flour, white sugar, tons of butter, heavy cream, and then if it's packaged food, most packaged baked goods, have weird chemicals or preservatives or artificial colors and flavors or corn syrup. And I just was like, I don't want any of that in my body. There has to be a way, just like I'm making this amazing salad, I should be able to make some amazing dessert. And so warm chocolate chip cookies are my favorite thing in the world. Cookie dough raw is probably my favorite thing in the world. And I was like, there has to be a way to reinvent the classic chocolate chip cookie. And so I just became like a crazy food scientist in my mom's kitchen. And I just was like, I'm taking over. I'm going to learn about all these new different types of flour. Like I'd never baked with oat flour before. I'd never played with potato starch or tapioca starch, or I had never, I only thought butter was out there. I didn't realize there were healthier oils you could pick, and that there's a difference in the type of salt you use, or that there's a big difference in the type of chocolate you use, and that you really need to look at the ingredients within the chocolate. And my mind was just blown. Like there was so few options out there that I kind of got excited about that. Like I was like, like this could really be the first of its kind. And so, but let me tell you, like the first batches were absolutely terrible. I mean, I went through hundreds and hundreds of batches of cookie dough, and I have a younger sister who's very, very picky. And so she was not shy, like she'd be like, this is terrible. I'm never eating this. So it egged me on though. And finally, I would make them and she'd be like, this is the best cookie I've ever had. And I feel good after. I don't have that sugar high sugar crash. I don't have a headache. I don't feel. And that was just like when I heard that over and over again with friends and family, that's when the aha just really hit that like, I'm not the only one who wants this, that there's a huge need for healthier, delicious, baked goods out there. And I just kind of have that crazy fire in my belly and passion to make cleaner food, delicious and more accessible.
Yep. And so at what moment was it, just you baking in your kitchen for yourself, and then it kind of changed into, oh, this could be a future for me. It could be a path.
Yeah, so thankfully I was cured over that year. And so, then my doctor's like, okay, you're clear. Go back to the real world, be normal, and I'm like, it's very hard to be normal once you go through that.
Right. Especially at such a young age.
Yeah, like I just wasn't as carefree as a lot of my friends. I couldn't just like go out drinking and like waste a lot of money and I don't know. I just was very like thoughtful. Like I was like, I want to live a life that I don't have regrets. Every day is so precious. I want to make sure I do good in the world. I want to make sure I find a way to turn this crazy negative thing that happened into a positive. Mm-hmm. So, I was like just soul searching and I tried to get other jobs. So I tried to get into finance. It just didn't work. I joined a PR company and was, it fell flat after a while. I then worked at a restaurant and really fell in love with like customer service and making sure people felt really good. And I started making some of the desserts on the menu, at which I was like, this is crazy. I'm, the chef should be doing this. So I started to notice the things that brought me joy. But what I really learned in all of that was that I was miserable and that I really was an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And after going through all of that, and someone who wanted like to have real impact on the world and kind of had my own vision, I just kind of became unemployable. Like I just wasn't going to be happy anywhere, because I kind of wanted to do my own thing. And so I entered a baking contest and I won. And then, and the judge, who's this, incredible, talented pastry chef, was like, you need to do something with this. And, that was like very validating because she wasn't a friend or family. This was someone really in the food industry, really promoting this. And then I entered another contest called the Next Big Small Brand for Culinary Genius, which was like this kind of food contest in New York City. And I won that. And I won the People's Choice Award and the Next Big Small Brand. And with that, I won branding and design work, packaging design work. And a ton of press came from that because it got our story out there. And so once those two things happened, I was like, all right, I need to start, I can't ignore what the universe is throwing at me. There's way too many signs that, there's really a need for this. And who better to like try to figure it out than someone like me who just has this crazy fire in their belly and like a real passion and mission behind it. Yep. And then I got set up on a meeting with Whole Foods and they placed an order before I even had a packaged product. And that's what, really, we went from, I say we, but, it was just me, went from this idea in my kitchen to like, this could be a real business where I'm selling things and I'm figuring out the format in which we're selling things.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And I know you mentioned that your first batches you made in your mom's kitchen and your parents were entrepreneurs and you really looked up to your mom. And I know that she had her own battle with cancer. What did that mean to her to see you channeling all of this into something that was so meaningful to you?
So she unfortunately passed away the year I like launched Sweet Loren. So she doesn't get to see all of this and like that it's such a real company and all the good it's doing. Mm-hmm. But in the couple years leading up to really launching the company, anytime she saw a cookie, it didn't even matter from where, she would bring it home. She just was like my market research counterpart. And I remember just feeling so like I never once heard from either of my parents like you should be a lawyer, you should be a doctor. It was always like, do whatever lights you up. And why can't you figure this out? Like they never once made me feel like this was insurmountable or a crazy idea. And so I think that that felt really good, but my mom, I was living at home. So when I came home, when I was 22 and then got diagnosed, I lived at home. Um, then my mom kind of got sick. She had a type of leukemia, and I kind of stayed living at home to really be there for her too. But the last couple of years, like when I was starting Sweet Loren's, like she was very serious. Like she was like, "You're starting your business, and I know you're not selling a product yet, but you need to pay rent. Like you need to figure this out." And so I would teach yoga on the side and do other things to make money while I was kind of building the plan for Sweet Loren's. And at the time, I could not believe it. Like, I really couldn't believe that, like, her daughter just, I was like, your daughter just went through cancer and then had to take care of you. And, like, what do you, like, this is crazy, But in hindsight, she was just, like, turning me into a responsible business person. And that's, like, all, like, she didn't care about the actual money, coming in. It was more that, like, I needed to, if I was going to be an entrepreneur and pave my own path, I needed to figure out how to make sure I could always afford my own rent and I could always take care of myself, and that I had to take it very seriously. It had to make money. This wasn't just like a fun idea or a cute idea. And so from the very beginning, I just was very serious.
Yep, that is amazing. How do you think that is still playing out in your business today? Like when you think about that seriousness, it seems like you are so committed to this mission that is so incredibly personal to you. And how do you see that still playing out?
Yeah, I think I've kept that going. I mean, I've given the business, I think, 110%. I've always, whatever it needed, I just have done. I've, probably worked some amount 7 days a week since I started. And I think I'm just, I'm not going to settle. And so that's kind of, the products we make are as best as they can possibly be. A plus cookie dough, A plus products. Any future products will be A plus. The team we bring on are like really rock stars that are reliable and driven and, want to do good in the world and are really reliable. I've built a profitable business. Not many, businesses in food and, consumer packaged goods, go that route. A lot raise a ton of money and just kind of blow a ton of money at the same time. And I built a profitable business and just felt like I don't need to raise money now. Like more money is always great, but if we're a really smart business, then we don't need that influx of cash. And I don't want to give up more control of my company either. And so I think, I'm really proud of that. And I think, it's the amount of emails and messages we get from moms, from families, from, I mean, men to, it's like it reaches everyone, but that say this has changed their life, that say that like their kid can finally eat something, that they can finally indulge their sweet tooth and be an athlete or just feel good or digest better or, have a food allergy and now they can, enjoy something that haven't been able to do. It's just like, honestly, that's what fuels me. So when I see messages like that on a weekly basis for these several years, yeah, I feel like we have a community that I don't want to disappoint.
Yep. And I can imagine that's a lot of pressure, when you're on this sort of rocket ship and you're building this business that is so incredibly personal to you and you feel this sense of responsibility to other people who have gone through something similar to what you've been through. That has to be a lot of pressure when you're spending 7 days a week working and also trying to build a life outside of that. Do you have moments where it's like, oh, wow, this is really building up?
Well, yeah, I think the exciting news is I brought on a president for the first time this year, and that is, I think, just game changer to my life. Like, yeah, now I have a 20-month-old daughter. I'm married. I really appreciate work-life balance. I don't want to be working the crazy hours I always used to work. It's not sustainable. It's also not what I want to do anymore. And so now we have an amazing team, and now I've hired a number two, and the president's really helping run the day to day. So I don't have to do the vision and mission and new products and be the face of the company. Oh, but also run the day to day that just as the business gets bigger, that gets busier and needs more time. So I think like that I'm at a new stage where I want to be sustainable. I want to have energy to run this for however long I continue it. And we have so many other new products we're working on. Like, you've worked so hard to build this base, and now it's like, okay, let's build a brand name. Let's launch new products, So, we've stayed hyper focused on cookie dough. Our whole business has been built on cookie dough. And now, there's just so many exciting new products we can move into as well.
Right, so many possibilities. I want to talk a little bit more about work-life balance. And on the show, we love to explore that relationship between home and work. And I think one of those interesting moments in your life is when you first met your husband. You were on two different coasts. Take me back to that moment. Tell me a little bit about how you guys met and how you decided you were going to do a long-distance relationship while also trying to build this business. I can imagine that didn't feel like an easy choice.
When I look back, it actually was the best way to set it up, in hindsight. So first of all, I grew up in New York City. I think any single woman in New York City would probably say, even though there's probably an endless list of successful, attractive men, it is so hard to find your person. And so I just dated the wrong guy after the wrong guy way too many times. And it's true, the business was always just my baby, like always my priority at the end of the day. And so I probably was hard to date too, because, I had this priority. And so a mutual friend, who's actually in the food industry. So my best friend in the food industry, went to college with my husband, Greg. And so one day after I'm lamenting about some guy I was dating, this friend Ben was like, wait a minute. Well, we were driving in a car actually, and Greg called. And so I start hearing his voice, and Ben's like, just chit chatting with him. And then all of a sudden Ben looks at me and he goes, wait a minute, you two would be really good together. And, I looked at Ben and I was like, this is so ridiculous. He lives in San Francisco. I don't even know what he looks like. I'm meeting him over the phone. But the funny thing is that Greg's actually, even though he was living in San Francisco, he's from New York, and a lot of his family was living in New York. And so he was like, I'll be in touch with you. I'm coming to the city in a couple months for my mom's birthday. So he came into the city, and, I was traveling a lot for work, but I happened to be in town, and we went for wine. And there just was, talk about home. There was this instant, just, I get you. And it was comfortable. And there wasn't like a show or some charade going on or someone trying to be too cool. It was just very easy. But I didn't really think anything of that. But then, we had a kiss goodnight, and I was like, oh, like that, and he was holding my hand the whole time. And I was like, New York guys don't hold hands. He had this soft side to him, and I just wasn't used to it. Yeah. And then the next day he was like, our next date will be in San Francisco. I want you to come to San Francisco for a week. I want to bring you to Napa. I want to show you San Francisco. And I was like, this guy's crazy. This is for a second date.
He's basically a stranger.
He's basically, he's friends with my friend. So I guess
you've got the endorsement. That's good.
There's a little bit of safety there, but yeah, you're totally a stranger. And I just thought it was a little crazy. And, but I made him jump through a couple hoops, and he did them. And then we talked every day. There was a time difference, right, of 3 hours. So I would call him at 11 o'clock when I was coming home from some event or dinner or something. And we met in the summertime. So it was warm nights. And I just remember calling him and him being like, just walk home. I'll walk you home by being on the phone. And I was like, he just kept showing up, And so I came to San Francisco. We had this really amazing week together. He picked me up at the airport. He had all these things planned. And then right before the trip ended, he was like, you're the one. This is it. I feel it in my bones. We'll figure out how to be bicoastal. And again, I literally thought he was crazy. But he just kept showing up. And that's hard to commit to every 2 weeks, one of us traveling. But we both have our own businesses. And so it actually worked out, because I think we both were so single and used to being just dating and not being in a super serious relationship, that I think it was a way to slow walk into something really committed. And it was a way for both of us to feel like we had our own personal life and could focus on the business and not be too distracted. And I was kind of done with New York at that point. I was starting to feel this itch of like, there's too much concrete here. I want more nature. I know I started my business here. How do I find a way to get back to California? And so, it was kind of great to be in New York for 2 weeks and focus on work and then work remotely and then, be with him for 2 weeks in San Francisco. And then the same thing, like he would come to New York and then, for both of our businesses, it actually helped, right? Because we started making connections on both coasts. And yeah, after 2.5 years of that, I finally convinced him to move to LA with me. And we moved here, and then 2 weeks later, COVID hit. And so, but thankfully, LA really feels like the right combination for us. Like it's California, but you get more space than kind of a really busy city. And he's in tech, and there's a great tech scene here. There's a great food scene here. We have a lot of family and friends, so no place is perfect, but it checks off a lot of boxes.
Well, that is an excellent meet cute story. I love hearing meeting stories, and that is an excellent one. I feel like it's interesting how you both have your own businesses, and I can imagine that's really helpful in your relationship that you both understand what it means to have that baby that is your business.
It is. I will say that's probably, when we met, we both were into health and wellness. We both were really entrepreneurial and appreciate startups. Like there was just a commonality of like, I get you, and so the many times I was upset or stressed, he's someone that can really talk the language and, really put on like his business hat and, talk about it. We're also in completely different industries. So it's kind of a nice compliment because, it's definitely not competitive and it feels kind of, safe. We're, being in tech and food, they're two things that are continuing to grow. But, it's kind of nice because we're not both in the same industry. There's no competition, it's just like, how can I be helpful? And yeah, I think at the beginning, I really felt like you get this. This is a lifestyle, This is who I am as an entrepreneur, and this is my first business. I could come up with more businesses. Like I need to know my partner is, cool with that and supportive, and you have to be so emotionally supportive, both of us, because we both have ups and downs, and there's super highs and lows, and then travel. I mean, COVID, we were both stuck at home for a while, but my husband just came back yesterday from a trip and I leave tomorrow, and we have a little kid at home. And so just someone who really can be cool with that. Like, we're going to figure out how to just balance and support each other. And so it's definitely, I love having someone who speaks this language. We're both kind of rebels in our own way, and I think you can design your life together that way.
So you moved to LA in the middle or right before the pandemic. And
2 weeks.
2 weeks. That is crazy timing. And shortly after that, you get married, right? Or sometime in there. Tell me a little bit about that and the stress of trying to run a business during the pandemic, trying to start your life with your husband during the pandemic. That's a lot coming together at once at a difficult time. It was
because we were bi-coastal and not officially living in the same place until we moved to LA, right? So this is a very big test because we went from like seeing each other every 2 weeks to like, you're gonna be living together full time. Oh yeah, and it's COVID. Now you're like literally stuck like glue together. So we moved to LA, 2 weeks later, COVID hits. Thankfully, we were close to the beach. Thankfully, we really liked where we were living. And thankfully, both of our businesses did well during COVID. So we were, we stayed healthy. Like, thankfully, we were given all of that. So like, there wasn't some, it was super crazy times in the world, but like we had everything we needed to figure out how to just thrive as best as we could during this crazy time. The unfortunate thing is that we had a big wedding scheduled in Napa in May. And so, when COVID hit originally, we were like, oh, we'll just move it 6 months. And then we were like, oh, we'll move it, 6 more months. And then we were like, well, I have no idea when COVID will be gone, and we're just going to kind of, and my husband and I are, in our later 30s, like we just were like, we've waited a long time to find each other and to get married. I don't want to get married in 5 years or something. So like, let's just postpone this big wedding. It's just obviously not the right timing. And let's put together our own little backyard wedding. And so we kind of had our little COVID bubble of our 20 friends that we were seeing. Everyone had to get tested. And we put together this small, but actually so magical wedding. We did it on July 4th. So there was fireworks above our head. Like, you know, it looked like it was for us. There was a full moon. It was beautiful weather. I wore my rehearsal dinner dress versus my like actual white wedding dress because it was a backyard wedding and it was kind of, but I loved that dress. And because all these restaurants were closed down, we actually got the like most amazing cake made and catering because, you know, people were trying to look for work when like the restaurants were closed. And so the food was unbelievable. And we did it all outdoors. No one got COVID. Like it was, you know, it wasn't stressful because it wasn't this whole huge thing. We literally just had, you know, our group of 20 people and like, you know, beautiful little like flower, you know, arrangement on like under, we were standing under this, you know, beautiful kind of flower arrangement. And that was like the extent of it. And that's kind of all we needed. And so, and then shortly after, you know, we had, you know, a baby. And so I think like COVID was this bubble, but we just were like, we're not going to let, you know, we're going to keep moving forward with our lives and our plan, you know, which is to get married and to have a family and to keep growing our businesses. And it was incredibly bonding. I will say, I feel like we made up for all of that time we were separated, you know, being on top of one another. Yeah. So
that makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah.
Do you feel like your experience in your 20s, having cancer at such a young age, really made it so that you're always sort of looking for the silver linings and making the best of a situation? I mean, that wedding sounds magical, even though it wasn't what you planned. And so do you feel like you're always kind of rolling with the punches and rebounding that?
I think I've, listen, like I've had so many good things happen to me in my life, but I've also had some incredibly hard, sad things. Like my mom passing away when I was 26 years old, like the most devastating thing. Like she was my best friend. I mean, anyone that loses a parent, it's the most devastating thing. But, you know, I was just getting on my feet. I was just trying to figure out, you know, my future. And she really was my best friend. And it was so like seeing loss like that, even getting diagnosed with you know, me personally getting diagnosed with cancer at 22. And, you know, I just started to clearly see how when crazy hard things happen, there's just a road. There's an immediate fork. And it's like either life is happening to you, it's terrible, it's going to scar you, bruise you, and like life is worse and you'll be like this forever. Or there's an opportunity to like accept what life throws at you, to heal, to do what you need to do, and to find a way to like turn it into a positive as much as possible. And I went down that negative road the first couple of months I was diagnosed, and I hate that road. Like I hate feeling miserable. I feel so lucky I was cured. I feel so lucky that I can have a kid. Like you know, my mom isn't here. I get to experience life. Like I am here and like I have no idea what the world's going to throw at us. So I think I just see that so clearly that crazy things are going to happen to all of us. We all get dealt our own hand of, you know, but it's really what you do with it. And, you know, you get to take charge of your outlook on life and what you do with the things thrown at you. And I think that if you're a builder, you can build the most magical life. You know, but it's only up to you. Only you know what makes you happy and what magical is to you. And so I think, you know, listen, I definitely have days I'm upset and there's definitely negative things, but I don't think there's anything you can't fix. And I really take ownership of my own life and my own happiness now.
How do you see that playing out now as a parent?
Well, my daughter is only 20 months, so it's such, you know, I'm learning how to be a parent. But I will say what I love about being a parent is, trying to explain things to her, and she gets upset about something, she's just learning to talk. She's just, she's at this really like, she's a sponge right now where she's just trying to understand the world and communicate um, and express herself. And so I think like being able to just kind of talk to her like an adult, like a person, like when something happens, I always try to explain it. And like, even if she doesn't totally understand all of it, I know she's picking up pieces of it. And, um, and just trying to, show her the world, when something happens that she doesn't like she hurts herself, trying to explain, okay, well, that's because, that was a step. You should have stepped up, otherwise you're going to stub your toe. But then she doesn't do it again, right? Like she learns and sees. And so I think, I just try to talk to her like a friend. I mean, she's really like, she's my best friend,
Oh,
so it's like,
that is really amazing.
She's just so cute and smiley and just wants to enjoy life. And I think that's really nice to be around.
What have you learned from her so far?
I have learned, really learned how to have my shit together so that I can take care of her. Like you really need, well, first of all, this is where a team comes in super helpful because, there are times when like her school's canceled or the nanny can't come and, who's going to take care of her? One of us needs to. And so to know that I have a team that's keeping the day-to-day going and that can be understanding when they hear like a baby crying in the background on a call. But it's really helped me just like, especially at this young age, learn how to really just focus on her and not be on my phone, not checking emails, not distracted, like 100% dedicated to her, to watching her, to making her feel safe, to supporting her. Like, so it means that you really have to have your life organized and together so that you're not trying to double task all the time, and yeah, she's just, it's like so great seeing her try new food for the first time. Like she just had cereal for the first time recently. And like to see a little kid drink milk from the bowl, those like, it's the cutest thing to like remember these moments of, just like happiness and joy that adults just take for granted because they've done it a million times. And I think it's making both Greg and I, family is so important to us. And so, trying to figure out that right balance of like letting her get hurt and try things on her own, but at the same time having her be very safe, So I think that's the challenge.
And you mentioned your team. Have you had any surprises so far balancing being a mom and running your business?
I will say everyone has been so incredibly supportive, which, is incredibly nice to feel, but, I think I am the customer I'm trying to sell to. Like I am that mom with a family who like is busy and is trying to entertain their friends and family and is trying to treat herself and, trying to feed something to her kids, easily. And so I just really resonate with moms and families more than ever. Cause like, if I didn't have children, I would have so much free time to travel, to have hobbies, to, see friends. The second you have kids, especially young kids, like all of that is gone. It's like I have time for, my business, like friends on a small planned amount, my husband when we have planned date night, and then the rest really goes to Skylar. And so, it makes you just realize your priorities and also makes you just really get organized and plan so that you can make sure you kind of fit in all the things that you want in your life.
And when you first set out building out your business, you were thinking, how do I build a life without regrets? How do you think about that question today? And do you feel like you're building that life without regrets?
I do. I wish I could travel more. I wish I could do more fun things with friends more often. I wish I could be a little bit more in the moment versus like planned, but it's very hard when your kids have nap time and their needs to be met. But overall, I'm incredibly proud. I'm incredibly like I'm happy within myself. I'm incredibly proud of how hard I've worked in all aspects of my life to kind of to get us to this point where I'm really, really happy.
Can you think of one decision or one moment that was really key to your happiness today?
I think I think it's just so important to have time to really know who you are. And so I'm grateful that I was single in my, you know, that I didn't settle down until, my mid 30s because I had a lot of time to really get to know Loren and build a strong foundation for Loren and build something that's Loren's and no one else's. And I think that's part of the reason why, like Greg and I attracted to each other because we're both very strongly our own person and we don't need the other person, but life is better with the other person. And so it's this very balanced relationship that I never had before. It feels just very equal and fair and supportive. And so I think like honestly, at the end of the day, like that's what gives me peace is like just know, like I'm in line with the things that make me happy and the things that I care about. And I've built my business around that. So, I work a ton, but I love it because it's my passion. It's the things I really care about. So I think that's just my biggest advice is just really getting to know yourself, and building that foundation so strongly. I think you'll attract really great things to you.
And now moving forward, what does success look like to you?
Oh my God, I have so much more to go. I think, my goal for Sweet Loren's is to more than triple in size. So, we want to, grow a really big company. I want to create other products and show that we can move beyond cookie dough. So that's success. Potentially creating another business. Like that would be very cool to show that I'm an entrepreneur. Like I really can create, I can create. And so love that idea. And I think having just a really great relationship with my spouse and really great friends and healthy, beautiful family. And I think enough time, because what happens, I feel like when you work so hard is that you can just keep going and going, but really trying to prioritize enough trips and enough time that you're really finding balance. And so that, again, when you look back, you're not like, oh my God, we just worked all the time. I think there's a way to work and work efficiently and also have a really good work-life balance.
I think that's so hard to do when you're doing something that is so personal.
It's so hard to do because it also never ends. There's always something. There's always another email. There's always another, and it's like, how bad do you want it? Well, I want it really badly. Okay, then keep going. But then I realized, like, life is so short, and like trips with friends and just hanging out, like those are my happiest moments. Like those are table stakes that needs to be part of, the week or the month, way more often. And, I don't think it would make me any less successful. If anything, I think it would make me happier and more stable so I can handle the stress of the business more. So I think like, I know what it's like when I started the business. I went extreme the other way. Like I barely saw anyone and I started to get really depressed. And so I know for me personally, like I need to have a balanced life.
Amazing. Well, Loren, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for all of this. I want to get into our lightning round of fun questions. So to kick it off, what is your favorite room in the house?
My favorite room in the house, I think is the bedroom slash bathroom slash closet. Like that's just me. There's no kids stuff here. I take a bath almost every night because it's my way to like decompress and relax. I love just our bedroom. It's very zen. And so I would say it's just, I've never had like my own walk-in closet. I've never had my own, I've always had such a tiny space. And so it's just nice to feel like this is adult zone.
Yep. What was the weirdest part of moving to California? This time or the first time?
I mean, both times. The thing that sucks is, and the thing that New York City just does so well is you could just walk for, hours in New York and there's a million places to check out and it's just this energy is just unbelievable. just LA is so much more spread out and bigger. So, we're in an area where you can walk around, but it is not the vibrance of New York City. It's more residential. And so I do miss that. Just getting used to driving. Like I never drove in New York City. So just, being able to like driving everywhere. But then again, I like having a trunk and putting groceries in a trunk versus trying to schlep them in a cab or on the subway. So, the pros and cons.
Definitely. And I completely understand. I haven't driven in like 10 years, so
Yeah.
I totally get it. What's your household pet peeve?
My household pet peeve is when people make something on the stove and then don't clean it up. Like I just hate when it just sits there, like, and someone expects someone else to do it.
What is the most annoying child toy that you have in your house?
Oh my God. We have so many little fake phones because my daughter's obsessed, and she's probably watching us all the time, but she's obsessed with being on the phone or pretending to be on the phone, that like these phones get like thrown around and I end up stepping on them all the time. So like, yeah, we have too many of them.
That's a good one. What's your favorite flavor of Sweet Loren's?
I think our fudgy brownie,
That
but
is
we
the
did
best
just
one.
also launch a less sugar chocolate chunk. And I will say, I'm not really craving sweet food recently. And like, I love our less sugar because it's just the right amount of sweetness. So it'd be a toss up between those two.
What is one thing you remember about your childhood bedroom?
I had this doll that was from my grandmother that like sat in this little seat, and I was scared every single night that it was going to come to life, and I never said anything about it. I don't know why, but that's just like the funniest. Like it was my grandmother, so everyone made such a big
And
deal
you never
about it. So I
said
didn't want to make her
anything?
feel bad. Never said anything, and I always thought it was going to like come alive.
How long was it there? Your whole life?
I mean, probably until, yeah, it was like 12 or something, like a long time.
That's a long time to
Terrible.
let a doll haunt you. This is very considerate of your grandmother's feelings.
Totally.
What's one of your prized possessions?
Probably like the notebooks I have of like all the early recipes of Sweet Loren's.
Great one. Who's one person that you admire who you think really lives well?
I just look up to Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, so much just because I love how down to earth she seems, and she has 4 kids, and she finds a way to find balance.
I am so glad you brought this up because somehow I forgot to mention that you wore Sarah Blakely's dress at your second wedding. Tell me all about it.
She's just so cool. Her team reached out and they were like, I know your wedding got canceled because of COVID. Sarah wanted to loan you her actual wedding dress so you could pull off like a wedding in an actual wedding dress. And it was so incredible. And her whole team sent like insane box of every different type of Spanx clothing. Like I don't know if you are a huge Spanx fan, but like I personally think they make the best bras and like great leggings and like just so anyway, they sent all this cool stuff, and it was just magical because my daughter's birthday is the day before hers. She is such a rock star female entrepreneur. I love how she balances family life, and she's married to another crazy entrepreneur the way I am. And, I just find like a lot of similarities with her. And so it just was great to like feel supported by her. She's so supportive of Sweet Loren's. Anyway, so then we renewed our vows when Skylar was born in the dress, like on the beach, and had like a second wedding. And it'll always be something I cherish.
Amazing. I love her. I love that story. And I love the idea that she's sharing this dress with so many women that she admires. It's such a cool concept.
It's so cool.
What does a life well lived look like to you?
A life well lived is someone who really honors the things that make them happy and full of joy. And so a life well lived is going to be so different for every different type of person. But a life well lived is, someone that doesn't have regrets. They're really content. They're really happy. They're proud.
Mm-hmm. What inspires you to live better?
Being a female entrepreneur, I think, seeing how many kind of younger female entrepreneurs are out there, and trying to be a role model.
Amazing. Well, Loren, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation, and I can't wait to share it.
Thank you so much for having me. I love chatting.
Thank you to Loren Brill Castle for welcoming us today. Subscribe now to make yourself at home to hear more conversations like this one. And be sure to follow along with Loren at Loren Brill and at Sweet Loren's on Instagram. We'll see you next time on Make Yourself at Home. Make Yourself at Home is presented by Nines, household management software that helps you manage your properties and everything that comes with them, so you can make the most of your time at home. Learn more at ninesliving.com.